Okay, and the magic machine tells me that I'm live. So people might be saying to themselves, CW, it is less than 24 hours since your last live stream. Why the heck are we having to deal with you? Whoop. Now, again, it's too much. To which I say, it's a necessity. It's necessitated by um, scheduling. I will not be available later on this afternoon or evening to do a video. I try to keep to a irregular by time, not irregular by date. Um, schedule of trying to be with you guys 5 days a week. We see Rugged Source here. Rugged Source grabbing number one in the live chat. Good on you, mate. Followed by Mario Heat, who's got an avatar. Mario Heat coming through with an avatar. God fucking bless you. I can't wait to see what the heck this thing is. God bless. We got spooky. No new live streams. Beautiful. Golden Coin 100. Philip Blair chanting. Philip Blair, read the title. I love you. I love you. And Mark Turan is here. Thank God. Thank God Mark Turan is here because this is basically. So here's the latest thing that's going on. Second in place to concerns of my life on YouTube after being sued by douchebag of the universe Corey Good for talking shit about him online. That's right. In case you're curious, there's another content creator in the world called Corey Good, who has ridiculous, bizarro space alien stories to make believe that he matters in the world. He matters as a human being. I love him. I love him. But his stories are ridiculous. And I had the audacity of consistently saying on the internet, every time he would come out with a bizarro story asking for money for people because he talks to blue bird people, I would hold up my hand on the internet and say, this guy's ridiculous and his stories make no sense. They're implausible and there's not a shred of evidence to support him. And for doing this, I've been sued in federal court. God bless America. Okay. Huge financial burden, but we're dealing with it and we weathered the tide and tide. So if you're new here, if you came here for ACDC and you're interested in jumping down another internet rabbit hole, look at the friggin' bizarre adventure between one Corey Good and one CW Chanter in internet land. Happy birthday to you. Second of beefs online that I'm dealing with is controversy regarding my quote unquote my it's not quote unquote theory. Basically, it's come through as a blasting of recent ACDC content, but it's tied to a larger issue that I point out to, which is it's hashtag no new music. No new music. Look, it's been said before and it's been said again, but I'm going to tell you, it's been done. We're in 2020 and we have more than over 100 years of recorded content that has gone down. And the effect of recorded content being in existence means that, things get recycled over and over again. And we are at a point in time where I argue that all possible avenues of exploration, specifically in the field of rock and roll, that's an easy one, have been explored. We've done everything abstract vocals that are extremely low in register to the point of distortion of the natural human voice, to high screeching from a death metal to a black metal perspective, all tones of voice, overtone singing, rhythmic, arrhythmic, rapping and unwrapping, this, that, and the other thing, beats that aren't syncopated, beats that are syncopated, music that is microtonal, atonal, arrhythmic, aharmonic. It's all been done to the point where we are now just caught in an endless loop of nostalgia and an endless stage of recycling. That's a simplified explanation because we want to get to the content at hand because I don't have a million years to do this video. So what has specifically also been argued is the fact that there are artists who, without a doubt, are, recycling and they're just doing the same thing over again. And more importantly, it's the notion that after a certain period of time, though bands like ACDC, like Metallica, like any of your legendary heroes, Eric Clapton, Paul McCartney, pick someone, Pink Floyd, that despite the fact that they at one point in human history recorded monumental albums, if lucky to have been part of recording one monumental album, let alone some of these artists like AC/DC, who have arguably penned and put to wax multiple rock and roll, hard rock, heavy metal classics, classic albums, not just classic songs, albums that will stand the test of time. But even for these artists, it's the notion that just because AC/DC were responsible for Fly on the Wall and High Voltage and Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap and Back in Black, that doesn't mean that every single album that they make is going to be the same. So where this particularly where this controversy shot up between me and Australia in the form of, it's one dude, it's Mark Toronto, but we're going to act like it's Australia. It's Australia. The controversy basically is that what became particularly of note was this argument regarding whether or not AC/DC's 2008 album Black Ice was worth a damn. Okay, and this specifically went back and forth, and it kind of became not an issue. Well, we're going to call it an issue because the AC/DC have released a new album. Now, part of what you need to know and understand about my hashtag no new music theory is that it goes hand in hand with what I call hashtag the 20-year nostalgia loop, or hashtag 20-year nostalgia loop. We can lose the hashtags. I believe in the power of hashtags to help search terms gain some sort of virility. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting is that, okay, Bad says, I saw AC/DC at Lenny's Tavern in the 70s. You probably saw them. The argument is that you saw them at their best. So here's the deal. So here's the deal. 20-year nostalgia loop basically goes something like this: is the notion that anything that's going on in any particular year nowadays is merely a recycling of what was going on 20 years past before that, in fashion, in music, in movie, in arts, even in politics. It gets really crazy when you start to look into it. And I have multiple videos about the 20-year nostalgia loop on my channel that I encourage you to check out. I think it'll blow your mind. You will look and you will see for yourself. So what's going on is what's interesting to me about the 20-year nostalgia loop, and why, though I was originally planning on to answer Mark Toronto's personal challenge to listen to AC/DC's 2008 album, Black Ice. And I even thought of doing it because it's like, there's a new album coming out, so we're going to review the last record, or two records back. Because of the 20-year nostalgia loop, and because AC/DC's quintessential record, especially, by many people's standard, is their first album with their singer Brian Johnston's 1980s Back in Black. And if you want to talk about my hashtag no new music, look at the year 1980 in heavy metal and hard rock. And then look at the year 2000 in heavy metal and hard rock. And then look in 2020 in 2020 in hard rock and heavy metal. And you will see it's fucking over. There's no one recreating Back in Black. There's no new Metallicas coming out to save the day. There's no new Slayers. It's all been done. And the kids, the youth with their guitars and their drum machines, they should be put into service in the sex mines. They should be put on trial for the audacity of being young at a bad point in human history. I might listen, do something, kids. I don't know, model shipbuilding or whatever, you know what I mean? And in case you're curious, the to say that there's no new music, don't point out to me the fact that there's new records that are being released or kids are uploading new shit on Bandcamp all the time. No, I'm not saying that some magical spell is coming over the world that has made it impossible for people to plug instruments into amplifiers or, turn a computer program on, like a digital audio workstation, and make a fucking beat. It's the fact that content, by definition, whether the kid who's trying to do it or not realizes it or understands it, has been done before. Whatever bold new experimental procedure you and your high school friends getting high think that you're doing, it's been done before. Between Sonic Youth, Merzbow, the Oinkyo, a lowercase music scene out of Japan, experimental music going back to the 1920s. Whatever the fuck you think you're doing that's so unique and interesting, it's not. Atmospheric ambient black metal, done. Oh, it's experimental hip hop, man. I don't even really think about rhyming. Yeah, it's been done. Sorry, kid. Sorry, kid. Like a classical musician learning a piece of music that's been recorded hundreds and hundreds of years ago. You have a place in society. You're a folk musician. That's brilliant. And that's worthy in of itself. But don't be thinking that you're doing anything fucking new. You're not. 30 years post Aphex Twin and Autechra, and considering the shit that a lot of the shit that they were doing had been done 20 to 30 years before that by guys like Martin Sabatnik and Tangerine Dream and John Cage and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Whatever the fuck you think you're doing, you're not. You're not. You're not doing anything fucking new. It may be new to you, but that doesn't make it new. But anyway, here we go. If we do this all day, we'll be here all day. So what do I have? I've got AC. So the 20-year nostalgia loop is fascinating for me. And the reason we're doing Stiff Upper Lip from 2000 as well, Stiff Upper Lip came out 20 years ago. 20 years before Stiff Upper Lip, 1980s Back in Black. So Power Up, the new album by AC/DC, is on the 40-year nostalgia loop. And that's important to know too, because at 2020, the 20-year nostalgia loop has been in existence since probably about 1975, 1980 at the latest, probably way earlier than that, meaning that since then, we've 20 years, like since 1993 or 5 or so, we're having a nostalgia loop of a nostalgia loop. The 90s look back to the 80s look back to the 60s on the fucking dot. The 90s look back to the 70s, and then you also have the 20 and 30-year nostalgia loop where that's why shit gets extremely fractal. By the time you get to 2000 and you're recycling the 80s, we already noted that the 80s were already recycling. So now when we get to 20 years beyond that, we're recycled stuff. I'm sorry. It's not my fault. Here's the other thing. The guy with the sandwich board around his neck in Times Square saying the end is near, the end is near, the end of the world is near, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be able to look at that guy and say, fuck, that guy's got no idea. Life keeps on going. Everything's going to be fine. One day that dude's going to be right. One day the sun's going to go atomic. The nuclear reactors are going to melt down, and this is life on planet fucking Earth. So let's listen to AC/DC Stiff Upper Lip. Now, what I'm going to tell you is here's the standard that I'm going by. I anticipate Stiff Upper Lip to suck. I do. And I could be wrong, and I'm rooting for myself to be wrong. And don't worry if you love AC/DC, because I know myself, and 9 times out of 10, I'm totally fucking bananas and wrong. 9 times out of 10, when it comes to these predictions about music, I'm wrong. So here's AC/DC's good old 3-chord rock and roll. And that's awesome in the 1970s, and that's awesome in 1980 and 88, 89. But now you get to a point where literally now, I'm sorry, at a certain point, it's like, yes, but it's been recorded. Those albums don't go away. So the question is really, what's the point of recording Stiff Upper Lip if it's not? What's the point of releasing something that you know is not as good as your most amazing shit? And remember, it's a choice, people. Angus Young, Brian Johnston, Malcolm Young, the rest of the gang, the child molesting drummer, you know what I mean? All those motherfuckers at any point could go to a studio, record an album, and say, you know what? We did Back in Black. Right? We're the guys behind fucking High Voltage. Should we put this record out? Or should we make 10 copies for all our family and friends for Christmas and call it a fucking day? You don't have to release mediocre music. Now, I could be wrong. Stiff Upper Lip could come out of my fucking headphones and kick my fucking ass, and I'm rooting for them. I hope I'm wrong. So here's the thing. This would be Mark Tirana throwing down Stiff Upper Lip is a great album. Let's find out. We're going to find out. We're going to do a track by motherfucking track on this shit. Because they want to release new songs to their fans. Okay, that's an argument. That's a contrary argument. We could fight. Let them fight. Here we go. Here we go. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put on these motherfucking headphones. I've got Stiff Upper Lip on the fucking iTunes. I'm going to hit fucking play, and track by track, we're going to go through it and listen to it in real time. I'm going to listen to the live chat and talk to the live chat, and I'm also going to be listening. So there might be a lot of dead fucking air. Deal with it. Fucking deal with it. Okay? And I'll call out the name of the song periodically. So when you're at home, if you want to listen along, you can too, you know what I mean? To see, you know, if you agree or disagree with my assessment, whether you're watching live in real time or whether you're watching, you know, on the rewind. Okay. So it is what it is. So let's do this. So here's what we're going to do. Off to listen to Metallica. You boys carry on. Spudwife, what Metallica album are you going to listen to? I am curious. If you could listen to any Metallica record right now, it's a long way to the shop if you want a sausage roll. Damn straight, Baz. What Metallica song are you gonna listen to? So I'm gonna be like this. I'm gonna put this shit on, and here's why I'm gonna tell you this. I am not going to call Stiff Upper Lip a failure if it's not Back in Black. I'm setting a specific standard and goal for Stiff Upper Lip. Okay, and here's the standard and goal. I am not holding it or going to call it a dick suck if it's not Back in Black. If it's not a quote unquote perfect record. If it's not a stone cold classic. I'm not even going to hold it to be to the standard that it should be, like Fly on the Wall or High Voltage. You know what I mean? Or one of the earlier records, in the sense that it needs to be like a great record. I'm going to hold it to the standard of like 1995's like fucking, what is it? Hold on. I'm going to hold it to the standard of The Razor's Edge, 1990's The Razor's Edge, or 1988's Blow Up Your Video. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Oh, For Whom the Bell Tells, you're out acting like Quasimodo. That's awesome. It doesn't have to be perfect. Niels Orman says, what time is it going to get there, CW? Here we go. There we go. Is it that morning where you are? It absolutely is morning. Okay, so here we go. It has to have at least 2 or 3. I'm going to hold it to the Dio standard. The Dio standard and the Thunderstruck standard, whatever the Razor's Edge standard is. It doesn't have to be every song doesn't have to be awesome, but at least 2 of those, or 2 or 3 of the songs on Stiff Upper Lip need to be as good as fucking Money Talks, right? Or fucking Thunderstruck. There has to be at least 2 or 3 kick-ass, awesome songs. If there's 2 or 3 awesome songs, not decent songs, not good songs, great songs, punch in the ball songs, I'll remember it. I'm going to go and add it to my iTunes library. Not only am I going to add it to the iTunes library, I'm going to add it to I'm going to add it to a playlist. Hard rock, heavy metal classics. I'm putting it in there. It goes in there with Thunderstruck. It goes in there with fucking Big Balls, right? It goes in there with Jailbreak. If it doesn't have a fucking Jailbreak on it, if it doesn't have a fucking Money Talks on it, if it doesn't have a Thunderstruck on it, if it doesn't have a Who Made Who on it, if it doesn't have It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll on it, if it doesn't have a Dirty Deeds on it, it's going to be called a motherfucking failure. And I'm going to say these old motherfuckers should have not released this fucking record, and they're wasting everybody's time. And it's a money fucking grab because these guys have artistic talent and they should have known they had a piece of shit on their hands. And that's the deal. And that's the fucking deal. So without further fucking ado, I put on my goddamn headphones. And if anyone's going to be like, oh, those are like shitty headphones, you got to give them a chance. Fuck you. If it doesn't kick my ass through crappy headphones like I wore when I was in fucking high school, then it's not worth a goddamn. Spudwife, you know how I get excited about music. I did have 2 cups of coffee this morning. Here we go. Let's see, we got support. Here we go. The user with no name says Stiff Upper Lip. What a great album. Love their cover of Badfingers, Come and Get It. Well, listen, let's see what happens. That's good. Oh, can you let us know when you press play? Yeah, it's like the fucking thing with like Dark Side of the Moon. Black Eyes is greater than Stiff Upper Lip. Mario Heat, you're fucking around. Mario, listen. The douchebag of the year, Mario Heat. Oh, and I love the Avatar. You motherfucker. I love the Avatar. You motherfuck. You motherfuck. Okay, Mark Tarana, seriously, man, a piece of shit. Yeah, if it doesn't have two or three Stone Cold ACDC classics, then it doesn't have any good songs. I'm saying it's got to have some good songs, and I'm not talking about okay songs. I'm not talking about wow, if Jet covered this, I'd say they did a good job. No, I'm talking good fucking ACDC songs. They've got a fucking higher standard. Listen, if you're Tiger Woods and you play like the greatest amateur at the local links, you're fucking tanking. That's the thing that happens if you hit and achieve great success. If you're potentially capable of classics, this is not a fucking charity show. I don't have to fucking tell these people that they did something good because they're fucking old, or I should respect them because they're my fucking elders. This is rock and roll, baby. If they're not bringing the heat, they're not bringing the heat, and we're gonna find out if they bring the heat. So look, Spudwave, the headphones are attached to the Sony Walkman hiding under his desk. Yes, and the Sony Walkman, here we go, Stiff Upper Lip playlist. It's going to happen like this, so let's do this. We got the link to the playlist in the live chat, so here we're going to go without further ado. First song is called Stiff Upper Lip. I'm hitting play in 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, shoot, wait. Sorry. No, stop! You can get me in trouble. Stop! Why do you keep on stopping? Stop! No, I forgot to plug in the headphones, and the shit that's gonna turn into a fucking copyright strike. Let's see if that turns into a copyright strike. I hope it doesn't. Oh, that's hysterical. And then it wouldn't stop playing. What the fuck was up with that? Oh, meanwhile. Meanwhile, in conspiracy theory land news. Mario Heat says, I can hear it. Careful. No, absolutely. We got that. We got it. Here we go. So what should we call it? Yeah, I think we got it. We got it before the copyright strike. So let's check understand this. Oh, in conspiracy theory land, for those people who love the usual content on CW Chanting, we gotta be crazy. Miles Johnston has got 3 uploads in the last hour. He's got a interview with our good friend Christina Joan Hart. That's gonna be crazy. But he also has uploaded. So it's basis 50. He's uploaded part 5, an ISIS special with apparently Christina Joan Hart. He's got an hour and 45 minutes with Douglas Dietrich. He's got an hour and 45 minutes with Fritz Springmeier. No, he's got 4 hours with Fritz Springmeier in 2 parts, and a Christina Joan Hart. So we're gonna have some interesting things to talk and think about. That's gonna be crazy. So here we go. We're restarting. I have to now, but listen, I have to put on iTunes again. Hold on. Should I even do iTunes, or should it's gonna take a million years to fucking load? This is ridiculous. I hate basically the desktop version of iTunes, and I update it all the time. For me, fucking blows. It takes 10,000 years to kick up. Now, if we run into the same problem, we're going to blame the gods. Now, I want to point out that AC/DC on iTunes has listed essential albums. According to iTunes, the essential albums for AC/DC are Back in Black, which is 40 years old. Highway to Hell that came out the year before that, Let There Be Rock from 1977, and Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. So understand that according to iTunes, not that they're the fucking authority of the world, but it kind of goes along with my point that the greatest of AC/DC is 40 years ago. At a certain point, you have to call the corpse. At a certain point, you have to fucking call the corpse. Sterling Bruno says Tool took 10,000 days to get on iTunes. Wow. Okay, so here we go. Stiff upper lip. We'll try this one more again. I got the thing plugged in this time. So let's do this. Stiff upper lip. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope this album knocks my socks off. Here we go. I just hit play. Oh, wait. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to tell you when I'm going to start so you can listen at home. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stiff upper lip. Even the recording, I got to tell you, I think the production is like what I would get in a local Hackensack studio. I get it. There's the riff. It's basically it's like a standard issue AC/DC song. I like it. It's decent. I'm not convinced, but I won't hold on to it. I won't hold on to judgment. I'll let it, be what it is. It's a head bopper. If you can hear it again, can you hear it? I'll lower it on my thing, so. This is it. Spooky. I like the riff. This is a bop, but it sounds like every other AC/DC song. Sterling Bruno says it's a weak start. Like it's not like a Five Finger Death Punch type of start. Meanwhile, I think Five Finger Death Punch suck. Spudwife coming alive. Look, he's really listening to Michael Bublé. Don't be fooled. Spudwife coming alive. Spudwife in the AM. Apparently, that's her time to shine. Five Finger Death Punch are so bad. And that's it. 20-year nostalgia loop, no new music. Five Finger Death Punch. The fact that they're big is just an indication that the metal kids want something to be big. Same thing with fucking Volbeat. Trash, decent, halfway decent, B minus hard rock heavy metal bands. If they came out in 1992, would have been like, no. But because they came out in 2000 when there was jack shit going on in the blighted world that was music. And then where are they now? If there's a lot of dead air, there's nothing I can do to control it. I'm listening to music. We're listening to Stiff Upper Lip by AC/DC. We're on track 1, Stiff Upper Lip, which is basically nothing to write home about. Like, you could see it playing at like the record release party and people being like, AC/DC are back, man, stiff. You can see the fucking diehard, like the Mark Taranis telling their friends, have you heard the new AC/DC, did you? I know that I'm not doing an Australian accent, but deal with it. Like he's down at the fucking yard with his fucking friends in the pen being like, you heard the new one? Oh, it's a right corker. It is. Stiff upper lip. Here we are. Is this track number 2? Meltdown. And here we are in the fucking blues thing. Meanwhile, it's 2000. This is 2000. We're listening to a 20-year-old record, but even still, at that point, the fucking blues. Yeah, I get it. No, Cork, right? I can't do an Australian accent. Good day, mate. You know what I mean? Who is this? Where are we on now? We're on track Meltdown. It's a meltdown. Hello to Mandy Armstrong. It's kind of the same thing with Stiff Upper Lip, the first track. It's like, this is like, it's decent. You know what I mean? And we've heard this song, and from AC/DC, we've heard this song like 10,000 times. I like that one. I like the up clip into the chorus. Apparently, I'm doing a Cockney accent. Can you give us your best English accent? Give you my best English accent, I will. It's a meltdown. Well, you know, apparently some sort of meltdown. And here's the blues guitar solo. It's like when I hear this, I'm basically saying to myself, am I listening to AC/DC or am I listening to ZZ Top? I mean, because they're not going, how. I know it's not ZZ Top, but that's like basically the only difference. Spooky says you aren't allowed to be British. Apparently not. Pass revoked. We have an expression in America called the ghetto pass, where an individual who is not of a certain ethnicity is allowed to travel within the confines of the ghetto because they have a so-called ghetto pass because they're so awesome and amazing. I've heard about this theory. I've never been issued the actual pass. And anytime anyone has suggested that I do in fact possess a ghetto pass, I immediately said to myself, they're just trying to get me down to go to a blind alley so they can kick my wet ass. And here we are already, like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes later, and we're in the dumbass fade out. The next song is called House of Jazz. I am not anticipating. Oh, we got 20 seconds. Oh, and this fucking thing at the end of Meltdown. This is some bullshit. No offense, you can do the 20-second, like it's like the end of Kiss first album, or you could do that at the end of a record. You can't do that in the middle. Sorry, in the second track. Let's listen to House of Jazz together, folks. It's called the House of fucking Jazz. And he's not playing jazz, he's playing blues. Why is the song called House of Jazz? But I like the riff. So far, we're listening to a record that could have been brought into AC/DC's record company, and they could have been like, "We like it, you know. Go back, practice some more. I can tell who your influences are. Your influences are AC/DC. So this is AC/DC sounding like the band influenced by AC/DC. I like the riff. The house of coming to the house of jazz. What possessed them? I'm sorry, who was the guy that wrote all the songs? It wasn't Angus. It wasn't the guy in the schoolboy uniform. Wasn't it Malcolm that wrote all the tracks? come into the house of jazz. Like, first of all, they're acting like, down at the dirty end of the street, nasty location, dive bar, house of ill repute, the biggest uh, collection of scum and villainy throughout the whole universe. They call this circle of hell. They call this little slice of damnation the house of jazz. The house of jazz. Well, the house of jazz. So, welcome to the house of jazz. What the? I'm assuming this is the playlist for this thing. We're up to How Can I Listen? Carol Ellie says, How Can I Listen? We're listening to AC/DC's 2000 album, Stiff Upper Lip, and we're on track number 3, House of Jazz. This song, no matter what happens next, they have such a hole to dig themselves out of. I'm sorry. They have quite the hole to dig themselves out of. Welcome to the House of Jazz. If they had said like welcome to the house, I bet, how much do you want to bet that the original song was Welcome to the House of Blues, and then they realized that they might get sued by Dan Aykroyd? Well, shit you not. Coming to the house of jazz. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire fucking life. And I heard fish heads. Okay, this is retarded. I apologize for using that term, but this is stupid. And this is 20 years ago. They handed in this moldy turd 20 years ago, and you're going to expect me to get excited about the guys that were 20 years past their prime 20 years ago? Back in Black was 40 fucking years ago. This is trash. This is trash. The House of fucking Jazz. Here we go. What's this? We're on to the next song. Hold Me Back, which starts with a drum beat a la the Monkees. And then it's this guitar riff, the staccato guitar riff, just like the beginning of, well, I can't do nothing. Big fat Cadillac built for you. It's like even the references, like, come on. You're singing about Cadillacs in the year 2000? Mark Toronto, you're going to tell me the House of Jazz? You tell me that I'm wrong. You have the audacity to defend House of Jazz. Mark Toronto, what is your honest opinion of House of Jazz? Spooky, if the Spotify ad totally throws you off, we'll hit pause before you get to, because you're at least listening at home. Can't hold me back. Wait. This is how much we love Spooky. Total absolute friend of the show. I hit pause. So tell me when you get to you had 1 minute of ads. Are you back? Tell me when you're back and I'll hit play. And then I'll pause before we start the next tune so we catch up. Back now. Okay. Listen to this piece of garbage. Don't hold me back. Mandy Armstrong, we love our caddies here in Memphis. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that Cadillacs aren't awesome, but when you've already written like 25 songs about Cadillacs, can we move on? Mark Theron, it's a 20-year-old song. I said the year 2000. I said you're still singing about Cadillacs in the year 2000? The user with new name says, actually, on second thought, this album isn't as good as I remember it being. No, because I'll tell you what happened 20 years ago. I'll tell you what happened, the user with no name. What happened to you was the same thing that happened to me. You love AC/DC. AC/DC are awesome. AC/DC were critical to my music career. They were critical to my listening, to my musical education. Critical. Back in Black, I remember the first time I heard that fucking record. And my cousin's playing me the earlier stuff when I came in listening to Back in Black and telling me you should have heard the first singer, this guy, Bon Scott, and giving me a total education. And even Money Talks. And so I know what happens when every new AC/DC record comes out. The AC/DC fans who love them go, oh my God, it's been 5 years, it's been 10 years, it's been 12 years since the last AC/DC record. There's a new one. Good on ya. And especially now with Power Up, when we've had the death in the family. You know what I mean? But this is like a demo. If you never heard, first of all, if a kid comes up to you and says that they're into roots rock and roll and they've never heard Back in Black, you put your hand on them and say, young buck, before you put on another Strokes record. That we used to do that all the time. A kid would be thinking that they're hot as shit, listening to the Strokes or fucking Jet or fucking even Supergrass, and you'd be like, son, sit down. Here we go. Let's have a little education. And it was lovely. And you put the kid in the loop and you let him know where the shit came from, and you gave him a music education. Because if a kid was into roots rock and roll, male, female, queer, whatever, if they were into old school rock and roll and they had never heard Back in Black, that was an error that you could correct in their lives, and they could be educated and hear this song. Because if they had not heard Back in Black, there would be something missing. You're never going to be able to say that about Stiff Upper Lip. You're never going to say, oh man, you can say to someone legitimately, you haven't lived if you haven't heard the AC/DC's Back in Black. You will never say, okay, so here's the next track. It's coming up, Spooky. We're on Safe in New York City. Now, here's what's crazy. This is a record that came out a year before 9/11, and the song is called Safe in New York City. Predictive programming. And what is this fucking beat? Where the Bengals invade the studio? The Go-Go show up. Spooky says, I'll admit some parts of this album are good. It's good, easy listening, but there are other parts that make me cringe. Yeah, so it's a cost benefit analysis. No one will ever say you haven't lived if you haven't heard Stiff Upper Lip. Already, we're 4 tracks in, and there's been enough garbage that we're going to say that we're going to make the call. Now, I could be wrong. If the back half of the record knocks my socks off and kills me and slays me dead, then it is what it is. Mark Tarana, exactly, Spooky, and a couple of beers with friends. Here's the other problem. If you smoke weed every fucking day, you have no idea what your record collection sounds like. I'm going to say it again. Let me say it again for the stupid kids at home who are still smoking weed at this hour of the day or this hour of night. If you smoke weed every day, and especially if you're one of those motherfuckers that smokes weed from noon to night, there's a reason why every fucking record you have and you love and you think everything is a Stone Cold classic, because weed makes everything funny and it makes all music sound good. If you smoke weed every day, you have no idea who's a good stand-up comedian and who sucks shit. You have no idea what's a funny fucking movie and what sucks shit. You have no idea whether or not Family Guy, South Park, or the new Simpsons are good or not. You don't know what the fuck's going on because you're distorted from reality. You smoke weed. I don't toke upon the marijuana cigarette. I am straight. But here's the deal. If I take 5 bong hits at 3 a.m. in the morning and throw on Stiff Upper Lip after 5 bong hits, I'm going to think that this album rocks because I'm high. And I have no idea what's really going on in fucking reality. Spooky says, I have to go to the store. Can you just pretend I am here and I will catch the rest when I am home? Please say when each song starts, Ben. No problem. Can do. I got you, kiddo. No, it's cool, man. It's cool. Mark Toronto says, no weed, mate. Gave it up years ago. How many years ago? Before or after Black Ice and Stiff Upper Lip? Oh, come on, CW. This is if you smoke weed every day, I'm not saying you're a bad person. If you smoke weed every day, I'm not saying that you don't listen to music and think it sounds awesome, but I am telling you that if you smoke weed makes everything sound amazing. You know, my friends I have that are into extreme bizarro noise music and all this experimental free jazz shit, they stop smoking weed and they listen and they realize, oh shit, I really like songs with a structure. Safe in New York City. Cosmo Creator says, I'm stoned but still think this music sucks. Carol Lovely says, no, it does not. Are you going to argue that marijuana doesn't have the reputation of making things sound better? Are you acting as though this is the first time you've heard someone say that smoking weed distorts your perception of music? Reemsey says, why is CW talking during the middle of the night? Bitch, we're in the same time zone, girlfriend. What are you talking about in the middle of the night? It's 9:12 a.m. It's 9:12 a.m. Ogancy Lane says, I think many artists count on it. You better believe it. You better believe it. If you run into a band that's like, it's like stoner doom metal. It's like being a pot-based comedian. It's like, you ever see this here's the next song that started spooky, even though you're not here. This is Can't Stand Still. And so far I'm gonna argue that I probably can. Oh my god. We're halfway through the record. When I see a pretty woman, it gives me a thrill. Oh yeah. This is we're halfway decent. We're halfway decent on this record. I'm going back to bed. This is all just a bad dream. Sure it is. Don't worry, the nightmare will be here when you wake up. It's 12 minutes past midnight. Oh my god. Every time, you ever notice how, like, when you're smoking weed, every time you look at the clock, it's always 12:12. That's an 11:11 joke. Anyway, Bunya says, I love playing my guitar. Stoned. Absolutely you do. Sitting there going, I sound good. Meanwhile, in the real world, it's like, you're like, oh my god, I was in my basement experimenting with what I like to call sound shapes. Here we go, another blues rocky C+ song from AC/DC. Can't Stand Still. Do. Beep bada boo boot dee 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 dee. Can't Stand Still. Dumbass blues rock wannabe bullshit music. This song sucks. I like the solo. Yeah, it's like the blues. Like, you can't, like, blues. First of all, old school 12-bar blues is like a cheeseburger and fries. Like, you got to try and fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to sound like, wow, it's going to sound okay. This is great. I like this. The user No Name, a review for a Stones album back in the 70s called it more of the same deep fried Chuck Berry licks. Fair enough, but that was back in the 70s, and that was 50 fucking years ago. Mark Tarana says, you sound like this is the first time you've heard this album. Is it? Yes, this is the first time I'm hearing this bullshit. And you know what? I regret playing it. My conception of AC/DC as a band would have been better if I had not heard Stiff Upper Lip so far. If the back half of the look, Rolling Stone, we just mentioned the Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones have an album called Tattoo You. The first side, even though the first side is the one with all the hits, I hate the first side of Rolling Stones' Tattoo You. I don't care for it. Start Me Up, I don't give a fuck. The second half of that album is this dreamy, ethereal, like, psychedelic almost masterpiece. So maybe this picks up on the back end, but this is we're 20 with this album came out in the year 2000. So the notion that it was track ordered for album and not CD is like probably out of our minds. Reemsey, giving financial support. Yo, you can throw more money in the wishing well. The nightmare never stops. God bless you, Reemsey. God bless you for financial support. It is all just a nightmare. Go to bed. It'll be okay in the morning. Here we are starting track number 7. Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Yes, you can. Yes, the B said to Tattoo is excellent. Mark Tarana, you can't deny that this all started with Black Ice. What? No, but we've been over this, Mark. Mark, you were here from the Jump Street. We talked. We'll get to Black Ice because here's what I'm gonna fucking do, Mark Tarana. Exactly like we're doing this to AC/DC Stiff Upper Lip. We're gonna do it to every single record leading up to Power Up. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure out if AC/DC did anything decent in the back half of their career, not the back half, the final quarter. And remember, this is not charity. This is rock and roll. The elder statesman, we're not going to abuse AC/DC for having the audacity to really stiff upper lip, but we're going to call it like it is. If the record's no good, the record's no good. And this record so far is like, why the fuck would you play this record if you could play? I like this part. Bam, bam, bam. I like this little part. I don't even want to know what's going on. Synthetic Rebellion, this is the stiff upper lip, the one where they just tried to recreate Back in Black. Well, here's what's crazy, Synthetic Rebellion, because we always talk about the 20-year nostalgia loop. This album came out when Stiff Upper Lip came out in 2000, which is 20 years after Back in Black, which came out in 1980. And there's an argument to be made because certainly this is them. The best you could say about this record so far is that at times it sounds like an old school AC/DC record, right? Which means they're basically just aping old styles, being like, we're still here, we still got it. But Back in Black is Back in Black, and if you recreate at the age of friggin' 92 Back in Black from 20 years ago, you're not doing anything new. I like this one part. I like this. Down, 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 down. Cosmo Creator says, can't stand Angus's voice. That's not Angus singing. Angus doesn't sing. Angus is the guitar player in the fancy schoolboy uniform. And here's the other thing. It's like, at least Kiss took the makeup off for 20 years and took a break. You know what I mean? Reamsey. Who Made Who is a very sadly ignored collection of strange oddities. It didn't work as a soundtrack to Maximum Overdrive, but I like to listen to it as a strange hybrid album. I love the instrumentals. Who Made Who is a great record. Who Made Who is a great record. And what my argument has been so far has been that AC/DC haven't done anything decent since, what am I saying, 1993 or 5 or something, or like with, we'd have to listen to Ball Breaker, but I don't know. You know what I mean? I think Ball Breaker had some singles off of it. But yeah, Who Made It was a great record. We're not saying that AC/DC suck. We're saying that Back in Black, we're saying that basically The Razor's Edge and earlier AC/DC are awesome. And we're so far realizing that the argument that CW Chanter may be accurate when he says post the 90s, AC/DC may be trash. Here we are on Satellite Blues. Again, just the fucking names of these songs are so fucking cliche. It's ridiculous. And in case you're being like, oh man, it's AC/DC, and you're calling the titles cliche, like they're just old school rock and roll. Listen to the lyrics of Bon Scott. There is wordplay there. There's wordplay from something as simple as Big Balls. There's wordplay. There's humor. There's creativity. Who Made Who? It's a perfect example. Thunderstruck, Money Talks. None, you know what I mean? Heat Seeker. Doesn't have to be cliche. Satellite Blues. And first of all, just the fucking blues, a constant blues reference. When you get to the point as a rock star, when you're just loving the blues and listening to the blues and making the blues, congratulations, your retirement home ready. You're ready for the retirement home or fucking Las Vegas, or not even fucking Las Vegas. You're ready for fucking Branson. This isn't Branson, Missouri shit I'm listening to right now. Fuck this fucking record. And in case you're saying, but Ben, you keep on going like this, like you're liking it. I go, it's a blues riff. A blues riff is a blues riff is a blues riff. 3-chord Monty. You're gonna sound decent, but is it doing anything? No. Is it a good song? How are the lyrics? How does it all tie together? The production on this thing sounds like it was fucking produced by fucking professional rock and roll producing professionals, in the sense that it sounds like fucking antiseptic crap. Let's balance the levels and make sure that even the distorted guitars are that level of distorted guitar where it's like clear. I'm listening to some garbage here. If this record came out in like 1983, I'd be like, whatever. You've got another vote for Black Ice. Well, let's see. Reamsy, we're going to go through all these records. So we'll get to Black Ice. And if Black Ice turns out to be good, Black Ice turns out to be good. Remember, the standard that I'm holding AC/DC new records to is the following. I'm not expecting them to do Back in Black, and it's not a failure if they don't do Black in Black. I'm holding them to the Dio rule. What's the Dio rule? Most of the album is mediocre or crappy, but the 2 or 3 songs that are, this is the Dio rule. It's also the Tool rule. I'm sorry. Tool records are very inconsistent. Just like Dio records were very inconsistent. It's the most of the album is mediocre or okay, but the 2 or 3 tracks that are good aren't just good. They're fucking amazing. You'll come back to them year after year. You'll play them 3 times in a row, and it'll still have a punch. It'll still have a unique energy that just nothing touches. If these guys are in the back quarter of this album, they've got not a lot of time to make up the difference. Mark Tarana, you're totally biased from the get-go. Mark Tarana, you tell me, you stand up and you put your balls on the line. What makes you think that this is a good record? You're standing for fucking AC/DC. You're standing for AC/DC, baby. This record is halfway okay, at best. My uncle could have made this fucking record, and he doesn't even play fucking guitar. Any 5 fucking dudes in a room could make this fucking record. This is fucking blues rock. Congratulations. In the year 2000, blues rock was beyond a recycling of recycling. Here we are in the next fucking track, and I just called them a fucking blues rock whatever. Here's Damned. Starting off with the same old tired motherfucking blues riff. Fuck this shit. The user with no name says, with the age AC/DC were at the time of this record, do you think releasing instead of an album of acoustic versions of their classics would have been better if they absolutely had to do something? There is a stage where I think that artists can reflect and understand that their best creative work is behind them. And that maybe they're better, like, a great example? Look at the Grateful Dead. The Dead are still touring. Do they put out new records with new songs? No, they know. Truckin', Casey Jones. They know that their songs are written, and they know that they're just, this is why you see these bands that come out and they do their classic record from start to finish. This started in 2008, around 2005 to 2008. You saw all these bands on the retro nostalgia loop, realizing and recognizing that their new stuff was okay, and they were doing tours specifically to celebrate what the people wanted. It's a cliche. The fan goes to the concert. Homer Simpson goes to the fucking, what's the name of that band? Not Badfinger. You ain't seen nothing yet. One of those guys, and says no new stuff, no shit off the new record. Play the songs we came here to play. Listen to. This is okay. I like this. The song's okay. But okay doesn't cut it. I'm not saying that like we should get AC/DC, like we should hurt them for what they've done. This is music we're talking about. But you're not going to tell me that this album is awesome. You're going to tell me that this album is fucking decent if you like it. You're going to tell me that this album is awesome. Eflin for you says CW has a Joan Jett poster. I had a Joan Jett poster, but I had to get rid of it. The Department of Health came around and said, if you can't fold it in 4 anymore, it's time to take it off the wall. And I said, take it off the wall? Good luck trying. Mario Heat says, like Rainbow in the Dark. No, Dio had, just like AC/DC Back in Black, Rainbow in the Dark is an exception for Dio, and Rainbow in the Dark was his first solo record. Okay, and he peaked at Rainbow in the Dark. After that, you're right to point it out. After Rainbow in the Dark, every album held to the Dio rule. We go through every Dio record, 2 or 3 classics, and the classics are just gonna destroy you, wreck you. But in between that is some fucking dumbass blues shit. Oh, Cosmo Creator says, "What happened to the Holy Diver review? Did you do that eventually?" No, that's still on the to-do list. Man, thank you for reminding me. In case you're curious, Dio's Holy Diver, and I just talked about Rainbow in the Dark, and then I remembered Holy Diver. Okay, so Dio has 2 classic records that don't go with the Dio rule. It doesn't apply. The Dio rule does not apply to Rainbow in the Dark and Holy Diver, which are both Stone Cold classics from start to finish. My argument in my review of Holy Diver is going to be that if you listen to Holy Diver, it's basically an initiation into mysticism and magic, the practice of magic. It's Dio did work on that record. It's ridiculous. Stone Roses and Ian Brown, underrated gold. Ian Brown has gone full truther, full conspiracy theory on Twitter, and Stone Roses had 1 good record. Maybe it's 1.5. What is this? Here's Come and Get It. I like this. But still, it's like, AC/DC is a part of Australian culture. So, is Paul Hogan part of Australian culture? Put another shrimp on the Barbie. You call that a knife? Come and Get It. This is the first song I'd say that I like pretty good. Oh shit, Rimsey bringing fire. Rimsey says, I think the Dio rule applies to every AC/DC album, including Back in Black. Shots fired. Same for Kiss, Aerosmith, Rolling Stones, etc. A couple of good ones and mostly forgettable stuff. Okay. You're there. You're on the map with your opinion. God bless you for bringing it. Occult Priestess says it's 6:23 a.m. in LA. Lol. And man, if you're able to laugh about that, ain't nothing funny about 6:23 in LA, girl. God bless you for showing up. Good to see your smiling face. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Midnight Oil. Oh my God. Mark Toronto, I have a feeling if you're getting bent out of shape out of AC/DC, and unless AC/DC are one of your fucking fathers, right? Unless AC/DC are one of your fathers, you're not allowed to get bent out of shape about someone disagreeing with you about your taste in music. This album blows, by the way. Come and Get It. We're listening to a pretty decent song here. Decent. So far, this album has been an absolute total fucking abortion, and I'm on the chart saying that. Bad says Radio Birdman is part of Australian culture. There you go. Chris Garner says, "What's the Dio rule again?" Okay, we have to specify. I probably shouldn't have called it the Dio rule. I probably should have called it the Tool rule. But it basically goes like this. Okay, so we're going to call it the Dio rule, and it doesn't apply to Dio's first 2 solo records, Rainbow in the Dark and Holy Diver. But for every record post those 2, the Dio rule is this. Dio doesn't make great records, or didn't make great records post those 2. Dio made records that each of them had 2 or 3 amazing tracks, 2 or 3 amazing songs that would change your life for listening to them, bookended by about 5 to 6 other songs that are basically kind of pretty shitty. That's the Dio rule. Not a great album from start to finish. That's why Dio's greatest hits is like, there are certain artists that if you got their greatest hits and the greatest hits were picked correctly, I could put together a 15-track, I could put together a 12-track sampler of Dio from his entire fucking career that'll change a person's life. But a lot of those records in particular, if you only heard the one song that I put on the sampler, you would be fine. Mark Toronto, low. I'm far from bent out of shape. I'm in your head, bro. Sovereign Integral says Ian Brown, conspiracy theorist? Question mark. That's what telling the truth labels him. CW Chanter, what world you living in? COVID-19 is what exactly? COVID-19 is a virus that is very deadly and has led to a pandemic worldwide. But Surviving Integral, thank you for coming into the live chat and thank you for sharing your opinion. Ian Brown says tons of bizarre, weird ass bullshit in on Twitter. And here's some other people that can suck a dick as long as I'm aiming at your potentially sacred cows. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. This next track we're on, All Screwed Up. So far, Come and Get It was okay. So All Screwed Up is we're doing okay. Here's some other guys that can eat a dick. David Icke can eat a dick. Moron. David Icke is a moron. Who else can? Max Egan can also eat a plate load of sausages and some clams casino while he's at it. Max Egan is another fucking idiot loser. Not saying that those guys you like, but yeah, the Ian Brown gets called a conspiracy theorist. He is. He's a conspiracy theorist. And COVID-19 is a legitimate health pandemic. And wear your mask and be safe and practice social distancing, or you could cause people that you love and you care about to die. And if that loses me your viewership, I can only be honest with you. Would you prefer I bullshit you? We should know where people stand. We should know what we think and we should know what we believe. Rimsey says, what do you think of the later album Dio did with Black Sabbath called Dehumanizer and the reunion stuff Sabbath was doing with him when he passed away? Well, I didn't catch any of the live shows. I wasn't particularly interested in them. But Dehumanizer is interesting because what's really interesting about Dehumanizer is the Ice-T body count connection, I think, if I'm thinking correctly. It's been a minute since I've heard Dehumanizer, so I wouldn't want to riff on it off the cuff. But if it's the one I'm thinking of, hold on. And this is fine. We can listen to AC/DC at the same time we talk about Black Sabbath because this song does not demand my attention. Oh, Dehumanizer from 1992 featured Ryan James Dio. Let's see if the one I'm thinking of. It effectively reunited the Mob Rules lineup. I'm trying to think if this is where the song I'm thinking. I might be thinking of a different album. No, I think I'm thinking of a different. I'm sorry, I got Dehumanizer confused with a different Black Sabbath record when it comes to the Ice-T connection. That would have been. Hold on. Is it Cross Purposes? Or Forbidden? That's the one. It was the Ice-T connection with Black Sabbath is from the 1995 album Forbidden. I apologize. It's been a minute since I heard Dehumanizer. We'd have to do its own review. General Lee Veltman, always on point, always topical. Fish suck. Mario Heats is sovereign integral to the House of Jazz of this album. Don't say that. Let's be nice. I apologize. Listen, sovereign integral. If you're still listening, I apologize if I come at you hard. I have my opinion. I especially have my opinions about conspiracy theories regarding COVID-19. And like I said, I'm honest with the audience. I don't want you listening to me thinking that we agree about something when we don't. And just because we don't agree on things doesn't mean that we can't hang out and listen to each other talk or listen to each other's points of view. Here we are on the last track, finally. Give it up. This is my message to ACDC. Give it up. This album was a fucking abortion. This album fucking sucked. This album should have been demos. These songs would have been suitable for B-sides, not even. This is like box set fodder. This is like when they finalized recording on this record, they should have gone back, taken half of these songs, thrown them in the absolute fucking garbage, looked at the other ones and said, how can we do this better? Reem C says Ice-T is the Forbidden album without Dio. You're correct. You're absolutely 100% correct. Give it up, give it out. Jesus Christ. This song we've heard before. This is just a different ACD song with different lyrics. Rodrigo Vieira says, is rock still the prevalent genre in the U.S.? No, there is no prevalent genre in the U.S. anymore. That's part of what led to the total breakdown of creative music. It's not to say that there are too many artists. It's just to say that the change and transformation from a set number of local radio stations and MTV and VH1, essentially small gatekeepers, controlling and naturally limiting the amount of music that was released and promoted, led to bigger scenes and bands being able to be bigger. I'm not saying that was a better scenario. I'm saying the new scenario is micro genres. Everyone's listening to their own Spotify playlist. No one's listening to centralized radio stations or centralized cable stations to get streams where they're all listening to the same thing. No one's really paying attention to the individual artists. They're listening to playlists. They're listening to genre radios. They're listening to genres. So, no, is it the prevalent genre in the U.S.? I guess you'd have to say that hip-hop is probably the prevalent genre in the U.S. Rock and roll is pretty much fucking dead. But that's okay, and that'd be expected because rock and roll is over 80 years old, right? If we... Pretty much. When are you going to call the dawn of rock and roll? Pretty much, usually people call it the early 1950s, right? Maybe the 54, 55, whatever. But if we just say 1950, between 1950 and 2000, rock and roll was 50 years old when it comes to the year 2000. Look at jazz music that predates rock and roll by about 30 years. And you will see that genres have a natural lifespan, and the natural lifespan comes to a conclusion where it goes into the classical phase, where the genre parameters have been established and people pay homage, recreate and re-experience the music of yesteryear, or they keep the spirit of jazz alive. But is anyone expecting someone to re-innovate or change or have a new scene within jazz, post-cool, post-bop? No, it's established. Play saxophone, play jazz saxophone, play this way, that way, the other way, play lighter, play harder, play more experimental or less experimental. It's been done. You're not going to do anything fucking new. And rock and roll is pretty much at that phase of the game now. At 80 years old, what are you going to fucking do? And understand this, that if there's 50 years, this is stupid math, but we need to come to terms with it. Between 1950 and the year 2000 is 50 fucking years. Between now 2020 and 2000 is 20 years, almost half that. It's done, diddly done. You're gonna now. What's the stage where rock and roll becomes like jazz? Then that's the end of the fucking record, and we listened to it, and it was okay. I give AC/DC Stiff Upper Lip a solid C. And that's because they're AC/DC. If they were a wannabe AC/DC band releasing that record in 2000, if that was a Fozzy record, that would get a D-. If that was a Fozzy record, if that was a Jet record, if that was a Strokes record, or a fucking Nashville fucking Thunder Pussy or whatever, that record would get a D minus. It would not fail because we don't call people failures here. And if you put the CD in the CD player and it spun, congratulations, you correctly recorded it and released it. The end stage of all music genres that stand the test of time: Baroque, classical, jazz, and now rock and roll. Now rock and roll, and soon hip hop. Don't forget, it's going to happen to rap too. You're finally codified. No one is interested the kids are not interested. It's not a music of the youth, it's a music of the elderly. It's an established genre. It's a known classical genre. You're going to see it goes into the academy. It goes into the academy, it goes into the university, it goes to the schools, and kids sign up for uh, American blues based rock and roll music 101. Okay, folks, everyone take their seats. If you had told me 25 years ago that I'd be teaching this class, I would say, what? A class about rock and roll at the university level? Well, here we are. 25, 30 years post the Beatles, 50 years post Elvis Presley. Here we are. What is rock and roll? And then day number one, first week is, the roots of rock and roll, early skiffle, blues, whatever, rockabilly, on into the first stage, early stage, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry. Now, folks, we're going to enter a phase and we're going to have to be brave about it because we're going to have to talk about race relations in the United States of America. We're going to have to talk about segregation. And we're going to have to talk about how, in light of these things, we get the first instance of the transformative effect of rock and roll on the youth. Hey, kids, once upon a time, I may have gray hair now, but kids, I was once like you. My back. Rodrigo Vieira says, interesting analysis. Sovereign Integral says, I love you as always, but geez, dude, just geez. You know what? I love you too, and thank you for loving me. I don't make it easy, and my response to you didn't make it easy. Thank you for returning love when I was a little bit excitable. My apologies if I was insulting. I thank you for the love, and I honor your integral sovereignty. Thank you for sticking around. We could talk about it. We could figure it out. We could dice it up. Reemsy says, to be fair, all AC/DC songs sound about the same to me anyway. The fun is in seeing how they milk the same thing over and over. It's like reading Danielle Steele novels. Same story, new names. There you go. Just highlight it. Reemsy, we're just going to let that one float. Reemsy, AC/DC equals Danielle Steele. General Q. Veltman, a.k.a. Lee Veltman, says grunge Nirvana changed the game. I respectfully disagree. Mark Tirana. I agree that. Let me do one thing at a time. Let's leave Mark up here for a second. We'll get to the rest of the live chat, and hopefully, things don't get too convoluted. Give me a second here. Hold on. So, the genre like rock and roll will enter the academy, like in the little live action skit that I guess got interrupted naturally. It will be studied. You go through the early 1950s, Elvis Presley, The Origin. Then you have the British Invasion, where you get feedback from around the world in the form of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, etc., etc. You have the psychedelic rock revolution of the '60s, ex- expanding out into the progressive rock of the '70s, and a natural reaction in response to that, and a 20-year nostalgia loop to the beginning of the dawn of rock and roll in the form of the oversimplification and stripped downing of the rock and roll genre to its elements in the form of punk. And then what happens? Now, bearing in mind that around 1969, the subgenre of heavy metal spurred it off from progressive. So you have punk rock and heavy metal, the kind of progressive energy of rock and roll being formulated in its own way and redefined, and elements of it going into this new direction called metal. So if you date the first Black Sabbath record comes out in 1969. There are arguments to be made about whether or not that was the first heavy metal record, or the first heavy metal record was something else. But basically, 1970s, the dawn of heavy metal. 1980, heavy metal goes into the new wave of British heavy metal. Mid 1980s, view of the innovation of thrash metal and speed metal in the United States of America. Then that turns into death metal worldwide. Eventually, there's a resurgence the genre in the form of black metal in the '90s. And what's happened to metal since then? And going back to the standard track of rock and roll. So you have punk rock in the 1970s. What happened in the 1980s? Alternative rock, college rock. I'm sorry, no offense. Welcome to the real world. A lot of alternative rock is just a 20-year nostalgia look back to the 1960s pre psychedelic explosion music, right? What's alternative rock? Jangly guitars and singer songwriters, essentially, some of whom don't know exactly how to play their instruments. Yeah, sound familiar? Sure does. It's a 20 nostalgia loop. And as those bands begin to learn how to play their instruments, what happens? You have a recapitulation of the progressive rock scene. 1970s, mid to late 1970s progressive rock, early 1970s, mid 1970s, dying off in the late 70s, early 90s, mid 90s, ending in the 90s. Look how many alternative rock bands started to experiment with their sound and get more expansive. Same old song and dance. Codified genres. Everything's been done. No offense. Doesn't it suck? No, not necessarily. What will come after? Dance music? And think about the experimentation in the abstract experimental dance music that happened. How I could tell you, as being a member of the fucking rave generation, every 5 fucking years there was a completely new sound, a completely new genre that was being born out of people's experimentation with the plasticity of electronic sound. That has ended. You can, in post 2000, what are the innovations in electronic experimental music, dance music? Dubstep. Dubstep is just house beats with a fucking jungle drum and bass line. And what happened to fucking dubstep? Kiss my ass. Mark Toronto says, I agree that you are correct when you say Stiff Upper Lip is no Back in Black, but it has its place in their catalog. A concert will have one or three from the tour album, and the rest is classics. Yeah, no, I'm not, it is what it is. Mark, what can I tell you? I'm giving you my honest opinion, meaning this. I can honestly sit here and tell you, I played Stiff Upper Lip from start to finish, having never really heard it before. Okay? And I can tell you that album motherfucking sucked. That was a shitty record. A couple of riffs that make your head bop because they sound exactly some old AC/DC song does not an album make. So congrats. So it's not Back in Black. So it is what it is. And now we're 20 years on from this abortion that was Stiff Upper Lip. What's going to happen next? We'll see. We'll play the other records. Philip Blair says, what's happening now? Nothing. I can tell you that I study the music of the post-millennial music. I study the music from various years from 2000 on to today, and I can tell you, having been exposed, having read Wire magazine, having been exposed and exposing myself, intentionally exposing myself to things that are happening in underground music scenes, by being a participant observer in the noise community, by being a participant observer in the experimental ambient community, I can tell you what the fuck is happening now. Fucking bullshit. Nothing's happened. There's nothing new. No one is doing anything new. It is all recapitulations and regentrifications of older past musical styles. Look at Vaporwave from 2010, this so called new music that's entirely made of older sound samples from when? About 20 years before. It's a 20-year nostalgia loop. And I gotta tell you, these vaporwave kids maybe think that they're doing something new, but as someone who back in '89 and '90 and '92 was hanging out with dudes who were getting high and taking psychedelic drugs and playing with samplers, there's this. It's just ambient experimental music. It's just sound collage. And if the most amazing innovation that you're doing is the fact that you're sampling not decent, awesome, amazing riffs, but you're intentionally sampling quote unquote bad music. And I gotta tell you another little dirty little secret about noise music and the vaporwave scene. Am I saying that every single music producer and every single fan of these genres is high all the time? No. Am I saying that a sizable percentage of these people that vaporwave is quote unquote drug music, and like all drug music that came up in the live chat is by its very definition circumspect and questionable as to its eternal quality? Because if you're tripping on acid, if you're smoking weed all the time, you're predisposed to think that everything under the sun sounds amazing. You just are. Not because you're an asshole, but because that's what the substance does when it hits the human nervous system. Baz says, did someone say Baroque? No, no one said Baroque. You're hearing things. Mark Toronto says, kudos for your time, Ben. I still love you. And I still love you too. Ah, Baz says, about 20 years ago, there was a Marshall synth earnest type of music coming out of Italy and Middle Europa. Absolutely. I'm very familiar. It's called Marshall Industrial, or Marshall Ambient. And it's a genre unto itself. You might also want to check out Dungeon Synth. Nightwave Radio, Jesus Christ. Chris Garner's the classic line from Christ. Oh God, Bill Hicks. All those artists that enhance your lives, real fucking iron drugs. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. God bless, and God bless Bill Hicks. Right? God bless him. Goddess bless him. Right? But remember, just because the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd took lots of drugs, and there's also arguments to be made about whether or not those guys were on drugs when they made the actual records and how much drugs did they actually do. So here's the thing. A lot of these people have a reputation. First of all, Jimi Hendrix is a perfect example. Jimi Hendrix died because of drugs. Okay? And was Jimi Hendrix high 100% of the time when he did a lot of stuff? Okay. We also have Synthetic Rebellion pointed out Zappa was straight edge. So was Mr. Bungle at their weirdest. Absolutely. And there were a ton of people that were stone cold sober, right? You go back, what's well documented? What's well documented is how the Beatles made their records. Okay? When the Beatles made their records, those crazy psychedelic records, they would go off somewhere, they would drop acid once, twice, three times. Then, having seen the vistas months later, would go into the recording studio and no, not high all the time, certainly not high on heroin, would make and go and work diligently with a guy like George Martin, who did not do anything. And they made these amazing records. And there's a lot of people who did tons and tons of drugs, and what comes out of it is music that enhances our lives. Yeah, no, and crazy. Some of these records were crazy, but were they stone cold classics that hang out, hold on, and stand the test of time over and over again? Not necessarily. And J- Jim Morrison may have been over the moon 9 times out of 10. Go listen to interviews with the late great Ray Manzarek, or what was the guy's name? Robbie Krieger, and ask them how blasted they were 24 hours a day. And they'd say, we didn't have, no, a lot of times we were fucking straight as an arrow. Why? Because this fucking dude was fucking barely hanging on to reality. So it is what it is. Hey, Cosmo Creator, smoke them if you got them. Listen, what's good for you may not be good for me. What works for me might not work for you. And remember, plenty of people do tons and tons of drugs and they never record a record. Why? Because they're too busy doing drugs. Okay? So it is what it is. Folks, I love you. We did an early morning show. We're here at an hour and a half. I thought that this ACDC review would take as long as the ACDC record would take. It obviously took longer than that, but an hour and a half is about as much as I can give you today. The debate, the discussion continues. I'm happy it's going to continue, and we're free to disagree. Tell me where I'm right. Tell me where I'm wrong. The user with no name says this was great. Phil Blair says microdosing, CW Chanter, microdosing. John Lennon, George Harrison, Steve Jobs. Microdosing was a term that came into fashion in the like late 2017, 2018. It was a bunch of people in Silicon Valley saying that microdosing was changing the way that they were coming up with new stuff and new inventions and new innovations in programming and in software construction, et cetera, et cetera. All of those people that talked about microdosing were in those tech companies that are basically retanking just like they did in 2000, because these people were basically saying that they were doing all these microdosing psychedelic experiments and was leading them to new innovations. What new innovations came out of microdosing? Steve Jobs didn't microdose. Steve Jobs did LSD back in the 60s and 70s and wasn't famous for doing it later. I debate you and I debunk, and you're going to have to show me a source that says that John Lennon and George Harrison were taking minute amounts of any psychedelic drug during the recordings of their quintessential and amazing records. And remember, John Lennon and George Harrison both turned into full-blown heroin addicts, okay? So microdosing is just a way for people to fool themselves that it's a good idea to get high at work. I'm sorry. Here's the other thing that we're going to bring teetering back down to planet Earth. We are a bajillion years away from the 1960s and the psychedelic revolution. I've done acid, I've done shrooms, I've done this, I've done that, I've done shit at the same time. And I can tell you, when the drugs wear off, you're back on planet Earth. Can it open up new vistas of reasoning and rationality and thinking and let you see things in a different way? Yeah, but at a certain point, you're just getting high. If you're dropping acid all the time and going to see the fucking movies, or you're dropping acid all the time and just dancing in a field again and again and again and again, you're on a new psychedelic adventure, you're getting high. It's okay. It's okay. But if drugs were going to change the world, absolutely and completely, they would have. Remember, after the drugs wore off, a lot of those hippies who had expanded their minds with the power of psychedelic drugs went to day jobs, went to work, and became yuppies and became part of the me generation. And then eventually some of them grew up to become evangelical Christians. So it is what it is, folks. It is what it is. And I'm not a mental health professional. So Christy Mass's microdosing can be good to treat depression and anxiety. Whatever a licensed mental health therapist does may or may not be okay. It is what it is. Mario Heat says, are you describing the movie Train Spotting? Possibly. Anyway, before we get too crazy, Mark Toronto says, I hope Black Ice isn't a letdown for you, Ben. So do I, but you should start thinking to yourself already what's the over under on whether or not I'm going to be depressed. Phil Blair says, get back to me when you're 102 years old, like Albert Hoffman at CW Chanting. Not everyone is an addict. I never said it was. Did I say that everyone was an addict, Philip? And what does Albert Hoffman at 102 mean? Albert Hoffman did LSD one time, to the best of my knowledge, when he accidentally dosed himself that one day. Did I ever say anything about LSD turning everyone into a heroin addict? Of course I didn't. Did you honestly hear that? Did you honestly hear me say that? Because if you heard me say that, then maybe the problem is the way I communicate, or maybe the problem is the way you're listening. And here's the other dirty little secret. If you have, and I'm telling you from experience, if you have a gut response, a gut reaction to people talking shit about drugs, you might want to think about your relationship with drugs. Because just like if you get bent out of shape if I talk about music that you like and I say that I don't like it, this shouldn't make your pulse raise. Philip Blair, your knowledge is shit apparently. What the? How fucking dare you speak to me that way? How the fuck dare you speak to me that way? You owe me an apology for like the 99th time. I let you get away with all sorts of crap. Your knowledge is shit apparently. Go fuck yourself, Philip Blair. My knowledge is my knowledge. If your knowledge is different and your experience is different, and meanwhile, did I say all people who do drugs turn into addicts? It's ridiculous. Phil Blair, he did LSD all his life. Okay, so I was wrong about Albert Hoffman. Was I? Let me see. Then to say it like that, like, yeah, I'm probably gonna fucking ban you because I fucking had enough of you being up my fucking ass. Oh, his first book was called LSD Mein Sorgenkind, LSD My Problem Child. Discovery of LSD. Up 3 days later, he intentionally took 250 micrograms of LSD. Hoffman continued to take small doses of LSD throughout much of his life, and always hoped to find a use for it. In his memoir, he emphasized it as a sacred drug. I see the true importance of LSD and the possibility of providing material aid to meditation aimed at the mystical experience of a deeper comprehensive reality. Was he a success? Yeah, whatever. So, if he did it more than once, there you go. He has said, adding that the drug was misused by the counterculture of the 1960s and then criticized unfairly by the political establishment. Eh. Yeah, I don't like the way you talk to me, though. Phil Blair is being a mirror. I need you like a mirror, like I need a fucking cock in the ass. No offense. He did LSD all his life, never heroin. Did I say that he did heroin? I said George Harrison and John Lennon. You know what? You know what? I think you and me just don't work well together because I'm constantly being drawn out of my space and constantly drawn into debates with you. Oh, meanwhile, you sent me another link on Twitter the other day after I went crazy telling you not to do it. Not everyone supports institutionalized racism, apparently. What the fuck are you talking about? Philip Blair, how many families can't get cannabis for the children's epileptic seizures because of the drug war at that you think people shouldn't get excited about? To some people, it's not trivial. The fuck are you talking about? We're talking about the recreational view of drugs for the purposes of enjoying and or making rock and roll. We never talked about medicinal marijuana. And none of my statements could be taken to be that way. You know what? You know what? I don't know if you do it intentionally. I don't know if it's a glitch in your system or mine or a combination of the two of us. But consistently, you bring me out of my headspace. Philip, I gotta tell you something. I love you as a human being and as a person, and I mean no disrespect. But I'm personally getting tired. Mark Toronto made a joke earlier about living in my head. You may be living in my head, and I don't think it's a healthy thing. So I may have to say goodbye to you. You don't understand the hate? You know what? That might be the result of me. That might be the result of you. You know, some of us have a makeup where we don't realize the effect that our behavior has on other people. And I could be guilty of it as well. It could be me. Phil Blair says, why make fights? You tell me why make fights, question mark, after you say earlier that let me find it. Let's see this. Your knowledge is shit, apparently. You're going to make a statement that my knowledge is shit, apparently, and then you're going to have the audacity of saying to me, why make fights, question mark. You know what? I don't know if it's something that I should feel bad for you for, that you have this makeup and this point of this is again, it's too much. Philip, it's just too much. Philip, it's just too much that this keeps on happening. I love you, but I don't know how to do it with you. I respect you, you contribute to the community, you're in the live chat, and when things are fine, things are fine. But when things go off the rail, they just go off the rail so much with you and me. You know, and it's the same thing with your inability to respect my boundaries with sending me links. You know what I mean? Why the fuck did you send me another link when I've told you personally over and over again to not do it? And I've told you, if you send me another link, I may have to block you, and you send me another link. It's this tiny little thing, but it's a little boundary that I told you was a rule for me, and you know you just couldn't abide by it. And it may be that you've got something going on that you can't hear me telling you, giving you the negative feedback, and you can't pick up on it. But it's fucking with my life, and it's fucking with my live streams, and it's fucking up with my headspace. And you heard me. I was able to deal with integral sovereign and be fine. Phil Blair, same to you. You never said anything about supporting a racist war on drugs. Rogue status, same as Walter Bosley. Those taking cannabinoids right now for this treatment. When did I say this is crazy? You're telling me that I voiced support for a racist drug war? I never once in this conversation spoke once about the legalization or illegalization of drugs. I made anti-drug commentary for sure. But did I ever talk about medicinal drugs? Did I ever? My knowledge of shit is, you know what? I never said it. No, you're wrong. I never said anything about the war on drugs. I have no idea whether you're doing this on purpose, whether you can't understand me, or what. There has been no reference to medicinal drugs. I can't do it anymore. I've removed you as a moderator. Philip Blair, just I, God bless you. I don't want to ban anybody for this shit. And it is what it is. But I'm sick of you know what? And it's the same people over and over again. And I say it over and over again. I'm not saying it's you. I'm not saying it's me. But when the two things get together, there's certain people that and it always is the same story. I have an easier time dealing with assholes than I have to deal with these people who just make it's like this constant, for whatever reason, whether you're demanding the attention or I'm just sucked into it, it is what it is. I love you. I love you. I love you. We added an extra 12 minutes of this nonsense. It's crazy. We're wrapping it up. I love you. I love you. I love you. If nobody told you they loved you today, somebody just did. I removed you as a fucking moderator. I swear to Jesus Christ. If this shit between you and me doesn't fucking stop, Philip, I'm just gonna hide you on the channel because I can't fucking deal with it. I love you. I love you as a human being. I wish you no disrespect, but this is just too much. What are you, what are you, my mom? This is too much energy to be generated. It's just too fucking much. Anyway, I love you. Peace out. It is what it is. This is reality. This is the reality of dealing with the live chat. I love y'all. Take care. I never said anything about support for a racist watch. You know what? I can't fucking do it. You know what? I'm good. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I gotta make. This can't happen again. This has happened too many times. It just happened too many times. It just happened too many times. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And to some of you, goodbye. It just is what it is, brothers and sisters. It just is what it is. I love you. Take care of yourselves, okay?